Dear brothers and sisters, peace be with you. Today, I invite you to reflect with me on two virtues that shine with the light of the gospel: humility and simplicity. In a world that often rewards pride and possessions, the Lord shows us another way, a way of gentleness, a path of quiet strength. These virtues are not weakness. They are the very foundation of holiness and inner peace. Let us consider 5 key truths that will help us embrace these virtues more fully in our lives. Dear brothers and sisters, before we begin this reflection, I invite you to support this mission of spreading light and hope. If this message speaks to your heart, kindly like this video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon to stay connected, and share it with others who may need a word of encouragement. Humility is not thinking less of ourselves. It is thinking of ourselves less. It is the quiet recognition that all we are, all we have, and all we hope to becomes from God. It is the soul's way of bowing before the Creator and saying, I need you. In a world where many seek to exalt themselves through success, wealth, or recognition, humility reminds us that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. And yet, in that dust, the breath of God has been placed. We are infinitely loved, not because we are great, but because He is good. When we are humble, we stop pretending to have all the answers. We open our hands, we soften our hearts, and in that emptiness, God can finally enter. Pride builds walls around the heart, but humility throws open the windows of the soul. It creates space for grace. It welcomes correction, listens before speaking, and accepts even the smallest role if it means serving another. The humble person does not seek to be noticed, but often becomes a light for others, not because of power or position, but because their life points to something greater, someone greater. They live not to impress, but to express the love and mercy of God in their daily actions. Let us never forget, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And grace is not just a word. It is the very presence of God acting in our lives. It is strength in weakness. It is peace in chaos. It is the divine hand lifting us when we can no longer stand. So, let us ask the Lord each day for the grace to be small in the eyes of the world, so that we may be great in His, to bend low, so that He may lift us up. To live not for our own glory, but for His alone, because the road to heaven does not begin on a throne. It begins on our knees. Simplicity is the art of living with clarity. It's about stripping away the unnecessary, the distractions, and the burdens that weigh us down, so we can focus on what truly matters. In a world that constantly tells us we need more possessions, more accomplishments, more recognition, simplicity teaches us that less is often more. When we choose simplicity, we are choosing peace. We are choosing to live in harmony with God, with others, and with ourselves. Simplicity is not about having less, it's about wanting less. It's about recognizing that joy does not come from accumulating things, but from being present, from living with intention, and from embracing the beauty of the ordinary. The simple life invites us to be grateful for the small moments: a smile from a friend, the warmth of the sun, the laughter of a child, or the quiet peace of a prayer. In our complexity, we often find ourselves lost in a maze of worries, anxieties, and endless desires. But when we simplify, we release ourselves from the grasp of this world's expectations. We discover that we do not need to prove our worth by what we own, by how much we do, or by how many people recognize us. Our worth is in the simple fact that we are loved by God, that we have a purpose, and that our lives, no matter how humble, have meaning. Living simply means finding contentment in what we have, rather than longing for what we lack. It is the wisdom of knowing that happiness cannot be bought, nor can it be found in the accumulation of wealth or status. True happiness comes from a heart that is uncluttered, a heart that is free to love, to forgive, and to serve. It is a heart that can say, "I am enough, I have enough, I am grateful for all I have." Simplicity also frees us from the endless chase of comparison. In a world that constantly measures success by what others have or do, simplicity allows us to step out of that race. It allows us to look at our own lives with eyes of gratitude, not envy, and to appreciate the gifts that God has given us, no matter how small they may seem. When we choose simplicity, we allow ourselves to live with greater focus and clarity. We make space in our lives for what truly matters: love, faith, service, and compassion. The simple life is not a life of deprivation. It is a life of freedom. It is the freedom to be present, to experience joy in the little things, and to live with a heart that is not burdened by the weight of the world. Let us choose simplicity, not because we are poor, but because we are rich in the things that matter. Let us choose simplicity, not because we lack, but because we are blessed beyond measure, and in that simplicity may we find the peace that only God can give. The world often teaches us that greatness lies in power, fame, or wealth, in rising above others, in being applauded, in achieving status. But the gospel turns this idea upside down. True greatness in the eyes of God is not measured by how high we climb, but by how low we are willing to go to lift others up. It is not found in ruling, but in serving. Jesus gave us the most powerful example. Though he is the Son of God, he knelt before his disciples and washed their feet, an act usually reserved for the lowest servant. He said, "I have given you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you." He did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for many. That is greatness. Service is the language of love. It is a quiet offering, a selfless gift. It is not loud or showy. Often it goes unnoticed. But in the eyes of heaven, it shines more brightly than all the crowns of the earth. Every time we choose to serve, to help someone in need, to listen patiently, to comfort the lonely, to forgive, to give of our time or our resources, we take a step on the path of true greatness. Service is not only for the strong. It is for everyone. It does not require money or titles, only a willing heart. A child who shares their bread, a mother who stays up through the night with her sick child, a man who gives his coat to the homeless. All of these are acts of greatness. They echo the love of God, who always stoops to lift us. To serve is also to see, to truly see the other, not as a problem to be solved, but as a person to be loved. It requires humility, because we must lower ourselves to meet others where they are. And in doing so, we find Christ in them. Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. He tells us, this is not poetry. It is the very heart of the gospel. Service changes us. It softens the heart. It opens our eyes. It teaches us that we do not live for ourselves alone, but for one another. It reminds us that greatness is not a destination. It is a way of living. And when we serve, especially when no one is watching, we discover a deep joy, a quiet strength, and a peace that the world cannot give. Let us never be afraid to serve. Let us not seek to be great in the eyes of others, but to be faithful in the eyes of God. Because in the kingdom of heaven, the first are those who made themselves last, and the greatest are those who became the servants of all. Humility is the soil where peace grows. It is the virtue that brings people together, even when the world tries to pull them apart. In our families, in our communities, even among nations, we see so many divisions, so many walls built out of pride, misunderstanding, and fear. But humility tears down those walls and begins to build something new, a bridge of encounter, of dialogue, of reconciliation. When we are humble, we let go of the need to always be right, always be first, always be heard. Instead, we become willing to listen, to truly listen, not just to respond, but to understand. Humility creates space for others. It allows us to say, I may not know everything, I may have something to learn, I may need to ask for forgiveness. And those simple words can heal deep wounds. They can open hearts that have long been closed. Walls divide. They keep us apart, isolated in our own opinions, our own bitterness, our own pain. But bridges connect. They make it possible to meet in the middle, to reach across the gap, to say, you are my brother, you are my sister. And these bridges are built not with grand gestures, but with daily acts of humility, with kindness, patience, and the courage to be vulnerable. In conflict, pride says, I won't budge. But humility says, let's find a way together. In relationships, pride keeps score. Humility forgives. In leadership, pride demands to be served. Humility stoops down to serve. In every human interaction, humility is what transforms disagreement into dialogue, injury into healing, and separation into communion. Humility also helps us see others not as threats, but as gifts. It reminds us that we are not better than anyone else, that each person carries a sacred dignity. It teaches us that being human means being united by our shared fragility, our shared need for love, mercy, and grace. And humility invites us to walk with one another, not ahead, not behind, but side by side. It allows us to embrace diversity without fear, because we are no longer trying to dominate, but to understand. We are no longer trying to win, but to love. Let us then become builders of bridges. Let us meet one another where we are, not where we wish others would be. Let us be the first to apologize, the first to forgive, the first to extend a hand. This is the work of peace. This is the mission of the humble, and in doing so, we reflect the very heart of Christ, who came not to divide, but to gather, not to judge, but to redeem. The gospel is not merely a message to be spoken. It is a life to be lived, and it shines most clearly, most powerfully, through lives marked by simplicity. A simple life is like a clean window through which the light of Christ can enter and be seen. It is not complicated by the noise of self-promotion or the clutter of material excess. Instead, it radiates authenticity, humility, and quiet joy. In a world that often values show over substance, it is the simple soul that becomes a beacon of hope. The one who loves without condition, gives without seeking credit, prays without needing to be seen. That person reflects the heart of the gospel more than any sermon ever could. The gospel is not about grand performances. It is about daily faithfulness. It is about caring for the sick, feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, visiting the lonely. These small acts, when done with great love, become a light that no darkness can extinguish. The saints understood this. Many of them lived in obscurity, without wealth, without recognition. Yet their lives moved hearts and transformed the world. Why? Because their simplicity allowed the beauty of Christ to shine through them without obstruction. Their words were few, but their love was great, and through that love, the gospel became alive. A simple life is also a free life, free from the anxiety of keeping up appearances, free from the endless race for more, free to be present to God and to others. When we live simply, we see more clearly. We notice the suffering of our neighbor. We hear the cry of the poor. We recognize the face of Jesus in the marginalized. And we respond, not out of obligation, but out of love. This is the power of simplicity. It makes the gospel visible. It turns belief into action. It allows our faith to be seen, not only in what we say, but in how we live. It reminds others that holiness is not found in perfection, but in presence, not in how loudly we proclaim our faith, but in how quietly we live it with integrity and compassion. And so, let us not be afraid to choose the simple path. Let us live with fewer things but greater meaning. Let us speak less, but love more. Let us give generously, forgive quickly, and trust deeply, because in the silence of a humble heart, the voice of Christ is most clearly heard. And in the simplicity of a life rooted in love, the gospel shines like a lamp on a hill, lighting the way for all to see. Dear friends, may we walk humbly with our God. May we live simply, love deeply, and serve joyfully. This is the revolution of tenderness. This is the gospel lived out in the ordinary moments of our lives. And remember, it is not the powerful who change the world. It is the humble and the simple who do. May the Lord bless you and keep you always. Amen.